This is Boles of Life podcast. It did. It did sound funny. I'm pretty confident that I just dropped this on the top of this, the thing that's making you laugh right now. God. I'm going to go ahead and drop that as the very intro, after the ads. The ads happen first, but yeah. For context, we were mic checking, and clearly my mic was not working. You heard my voice through Virginia's mic, and Virginia's mic was turned up far too loud on top of her ridiculousness. She's currently dying. That's why she's yet to say real words. I'm thinking about starting the intro while you're laughing, because we haven't done the intro yet.
I'm ready.
Are you ready? Okay. This is the Boles of Life podcast. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Virginia. As we've gone through life, we've learned something important.
Life is messy. It gets complicated.
But we have learned... Oh, man. Shoot. But we've also learned that we can create tools to help us jump into the mess of life and make an adventure of it.
Welcome to our messy intros and also adventures in faith, family, and food.
Oh, that was funny.
It was funny.
That was a good laugh.
That was a good laugh. I'm glad you got a good laugh in.
Yeah.
For the record, I was looking at the intro words, and Virginia wasn't, so that's why she forgot
and
them.
I thought I was going to have it, but...
You were so close, but you were distracted by your laughter.
Yeah.
Yes.
I hope y'all enjoyed that.
It was purely for your entertainment. We did also sing The Real Slim Shady, but that did not get recorded.
You didn't, yeah.
That was my bad. I'll try to catch her that next time in the future.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm doing better than I was earlier today. So that's good.
Why are you better than you were earlier today?
Oh, it's just wrangling 3 kids this morning.
Did that come with like chaos or something?
It all started when I wanted to make coffee for everyone.
Well, that was your first mistake. You made coffee for our hyperactive children.
Well, they get like a splash. But I couldn't find... the gift guide that we sent out?
Yes, the gift guide that you guys should check out on bolesoflife.com.
Yes, don't forget to check out the gift guide. There is a milk frother on there. And in the milk milk frother that we have, there's a little piece that if you...
It literally does all the frothing.
It's the thing that froths.
It froths.
And
hey, say froth one more time.
I lost the frothing device.
Thanks.
And I couldn't find it. Anyways, we wanted poofy milk, as we call it.
Poofy
and
milk.
I couldn't provide poofy milk.
And it made for many feelings.
Yeah.
And you and the children. I think Stella was probably fine at that point. She got upset after the fact.
Yeah, but no, we're doing good now.
Oh,
everybody's in bed, and for now, at least.
Yeah, for the moment.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. So we are finally out of our unordered or misordered or out of order. That's the words I'm looking for.
Disordered.
Out of order, disordered episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're recording in order again.
Yes.
So the last episode, if you guys listened to it, would be the one about the Forming Your Life Journal. If you didn't, go listen to it.
Take a listen. Yeah.
Yeah, because I need people to check that thing out and give me real feedback on it, because Virginia's feedback, helpful in that she was very encouraging. No critical feedback or anything, which maybe meant it was perfect, but...
Well, you also just got the physical copy?
Yes, I meant to have one, but it's in the bedroom with our sleeping child, so I opted to leave it in there.
Yeah, so...
Yeah,
I'll take a look at the physical copy. Is one of those for me?
I just bought 2 of them because I was like, 2 of them. And that was how that worked.
Yeah.
Because I had to buy my own book.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I had to pay for my own book.
I know, because you have to get it. Yeah.
Have to pay for it to be printed.
I want to attempt to use it.
Okay.
It's not my style.
It is not.
And that's okay.
It is.
But I'd like to try it.
Sure. Okay. Cool. You guys learned that on the air at the same time I did. Actually, I learned this 3 weeks before you did, but whatever, time travel or something like that.
Yeah. Kind of what it feels like.
It is what it feels like. Hey, did you know that breakfast is the most important meal of the day?
Do you know who started like coined that phrase?
I mean, I do now, but I didn't before you started researching this topic. So
You're supposed to just pretend like
you're
finding out in this moment.
No, tell me who coined that topic or that phrase.
That phrase. So back in the day, early 1900s, Dr. Kellogg created.
Kellogg.
Yeah, Dr. John Harvey Kellogg created.
What's he a doctor of?
He's a medical
an MD?
doctor.
Okay,
yeah.
I was just curious.
He created cereal. Basically, he accidentally figured out cornflakes.
Ooh, wait. I feel like there's a story there. Do you know the story?
Oh, gosh.
How do you accidentally?
Yeah. So he made granola first, which is actually just like dried flakes, I think, essentially. It's not the granola we know today. But something happened where he left the...
Did you leave the oven on too long?
The wheat, the mush out overnight, and it dried, and then it flaked, and they worked really hard to recreate that so that they could get cornflakes.
More of those, because they liked it.
The wheat and corn and all the different flours that they use, but it was left out overnight because he had to leave. Because he's a doctor, I think he had to leave in the middle of the night. He worked for a sanatorium, which is basically
mental health.
It could be mental, it could be physical. I mean, it could be,
Yeah.
It was just for health reasons. Anyways, it was an accident. And then they had to figure out how to recreate what he had accidentally done.
Interesting.
That was the story I read.
Cool.
And so, not specifically Dr. Kellogg who quoted that, but I think a dietitian actually said it. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And they started using it in the marketing campaign for cereals. So Post used it as well as Kellogg, which Dr. Kellogg, who created cornflakes, actually didn't even get to own Kellogg's. It was his brother. There was a story there too.
There always is.
So
there's always a brother.
Yeah. So the other Kellogg is the one who actually started Kellogg's. But anyways, just they used that slogan, that phrase, as a way to market their cereals to people to eat their breakfast so that they would eat more cereal.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So would you then say breakfast is not the most important meal of the day?
Oh, so I would say that breakfast is just as important as the other meals. They're all important.
Oh. So... Okay.
But there's a reason why...
which one's the most important?
There's a reason why they say that breakfast is the most important. For one, breakfast seems to be the most controversial meal for people.
Controversial in what way?
Meaning they don't, lunch and supper are typically a given, but breakfast is kind of an option. People either do or don't have it. And so it's like marketing... It's we're trying to convince people to eat breakfast. And so they, said it was the most important meal of the day to get people, to convince people to eat breakfast so that they would eat their cereals. Now there's a whole lot there. But as far as nutritionally, that's what we'll dive into today, because I'm going to take out the most and just emphasize how important it is. But in relation to our health and nutrition, why, if you don't start your day with breakfast, how that actually might impact you negatively. So it could be the most important, but not necessarily.
Okay. How do you think that slogan has affected what we do eat for breakfast if we eat it? Because it's obviously highlighted the fact that you're supposed to have breakfast. That's pretty clear. How do you think it's affected what we're having for breakfast?
Well, just in general, the way that they've marketed breakfast, it typically goes all the way back to trying to make money and selling a product, right?
Yeah.
But the cereals, the Pop-Tarts, the pastries, those types of breakfasts have been the most, I think, successful in their marketing, because that's what most people turn to, because they're quick and they're easy.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's definitely impacted not necessarily that slogan. I mean, that slogan has obviously probably convicted people. Like, oh, that's the most important meal. I need to make sure I have it. Well, there's something that's really easy. Because even back in the day, like back in the, the 20s and the 40s, it was, they went from like making a hot porridge, something they had to cook, to, oh, I can just mix my milk and flakes. And like, that's breakfast. So it was even like a convenience for them back in the day, whereas now it's still kind of the same thing, but our cereals look a lot different now than they did back then.
In what ways?
Well, if I think it's so funny, if you're in the world of like wellness right now, you've probably heard of the controversy that Kellogg's.
So I got the vibe that something was happening based on an Instagram funny I saw the other day, but I had no full context, nor did I chase it. Help, tell me what's going on.
Yeah, so basically, parents are, moms especially, are just kind of getting a little ticked off that our food is not always the most nutritious, most healthy, has the best ingredients, and even has somewhat harmful ingredients. It has harmful ingredients. Let me try not to minimize. Like, it has harmful ingredients in it, and it's marketed towards our children. So moms are getting very upset about this, and there's just a group of them that are petitioning and, what's the word? Not
pushing.
Rioting, but protesting against and boycotting Kellogg's as a whole. Because of the food dyes that they use and the other ingredients that are like carcinogens and harmful. And I can't really get in all the details now because I can't remember what all those ingredients are called.
I do remember recently seeing something, maybe it was on the pour over, a quick pass on the fact that it might be Kellogg's, I can't remember. They use different dyes and things like that in especially European countries because of their more strict food laws, and yet won't do that here because it's cheaper to use the less good things. Basically, so, that was,
y'all are about to
go for it. Come on.
We're opening the can of worms here, so let's just go.
I'm asking the questions that weren't at all the ones you wanted to answer.
This is a Make America Healthy Again thing that's going on, okay? So this is RFK kind of led thing, but European countries have higher standards when it comes to the ingredients that they use in their foods, their cosmetics, their cleaning supplies, and it all comes down to our government regulation, our food, our FDA, our Food and Drug Administration. And, truly it's kind of sad that we have these ingredients in our foods, and these, is what is most accessible to the public, like to the population at large, to the food insecure and the food secure. So the people who are poor and using our governmental benefits, they can only access foods that are potentially, not the best for them, could be causing harm. And I'm trying to, be careful with my language, because I don't feel like I know I don't know enough to be wholly convicted, just one way or the other, because I see both sides of it. That's just my personality, but also in my profession, I feel like I can see both sides of it. But you do have dietitians on one side and the other. But essentially, like, our FDA has very looser regulations when it comes to some of our ingredients, and like red dye 40 is the main one right now that people are really concerned about. But there's another ingredient that I can't pronounce that is like
pretty common.
Yes, it's a pretty common one that people are frustrated about, that it's in our foods and cereals that are marketed towards children. And so, but the thing is, like, most of those moms that are like protesting aren't buying that cereal anyways, more than likely.
Yeah, they had probably already stopped buying those things. Right. Therefore, they're probably not causing a super harm to the bottom line.
But, I think of it like as a whole, like, because for the people that are, which cereals are not cheap. Like
No.
we don't buy cereals because they are so expensive, like brand name cereals.
Yeah, no, if it don't come in the big bag at the bottom of the shelf.
Yeah, like that store brand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but like, anyways, like government benefits, that sort of thing. Like, I mean, I feel like just as a whole, like we should have better standards when it comes to our food.
Yeah.
But I don't mean to get off in that, but like,
No, I asked and I wanted to hear you say
that's like
things.
So Kellogg's is actually under fire, or I don't know, they're kind of on the hot seat right now because of that. and it is crazy to think that like, that is like, I think some people, we're feeding our families these breakfasts, and, if breakfast is an important meal, are we actually doing well by it, by feeding what is available to us? Is there something we could do that might actually be better for us and for our children?
Yeah, so while we're kind of in this direction, and you might want to talk about it later, but when we were in Australia, there was something very interesting about American cereals in Australia.
Yeah, they're sold in the candy shops.
Yeah.
Like, it's a specialty in the candy shop.
Yeah.
Pop-Tarts as well.
Yeah.
Pop-Tarts.
That's
yeah, and our normal cereals.
Yeah.
And just recently, like Luna, the minute she woke up, she asked for candy. We're post-Halloween, so we still have the Halloween candy. And, I said, well, not for breakfast, not this early in the day. And we had just recently, because they had a huge sale on brand name cereals. I never
probably because they're trying to move it right now because they got too much of a backlog.
No, you're right. I had that thought, and I almost said, "Oops, I probably shouldn't buy it." But then I was like, "Oh well, you never get Lucky Charms
we're
this
broke.
cheap.
We're gonna get those."
Yeah, I was like, "You never get it this cheap." And we love Honey Nut Cheerios, and unfortunately, Kroger brand does not have does not have Honey Cheerios anymore, or peanut butter Cheerios, which was the bomb.
Yep.
So, anyways, they were on like massive sale, and I've been stocking up on different foods lately when it's on sale. So, anyways, I did have Lucky Charms, and I never have those just because
we do not.
I don't feel like that's the most substantial breakfast for my children, because all they're going to eat is the marshmallows.
Right. Literally, we've watched that.
So, I try not to let that be a staple, but that's my own conviction. But like, I said no to candy, and then just a little bit later she asked for cereal and yogurt, which I always serve it. I try to always serve it like with Greek yogurt
because it has
protein
versus milk that doesn't really have.
Well, milk has protein too. Greek yogurt has more.
Right.
So I like full fat milk as well. Like, so if we are doing it with milk, we do have full fat milk, which balances it out a little bit better too. Yeah. But yogurt gives it that Greek yogurt gives it that extra protein. So anchors it down a little bit better, and we can talk about those kind of details in a little bit, but it was just funny because then I was like, oh well, guess what, I actually have Lucky Charms, do you want those? And then I just laughed at myself because I was like,
you basically had
I was like,
candy
I'm basically
for breakfast.
Just giving her candy anyways. But anyways, it was paired with protein, and I was not hurt or like worried about it at all. It was something we never do, but yeah, so is breakfast the most important meal of the day? That's the question of the hour. Yeah.
So do you want to go science of like metabolism next?
Yeah.
Do you want to go, do you even eat breakfast next? Where do you want to take it?
I'll start with this. I guess it'll be sciencey, but like I promise y'all, I'll try not to be too technical here.
No, I want all the
technicals. It is not, I do pretty good at explaining it.
You do.
I think
I like
not so
when
technical.
we do Science Corner with Virginia.
Yeah. So, right. So our bodies are meant to have a fasting period from food. And that's when we rest.
Hey.
That's when we sleep. Our bodies go into this restoration state. So from the last meal of the day until we break our fast the next morning, our body's doing a lot of work to rest. So really, before I can even talk about breakfast, I have to emphasize like the importance of a good night's rest. It's really important that we get a good night's rest in order to have good health.
Yeah. You sent me something the other day that was talking about the fact that most of the studies that suggest like 8-ish hours for the average adult is actually studies done primarily on males. And so a study recently on females actually showed that it's probably closer to 10 hours for the average female to get the optimal amount
Yeah,
of rest.
and that just like validated
all of your feelings
my whole
ever.
life. It just validated all of that for me. But yeah, that was very interesting. But sleep is very important. Lots of crucial processes are happening in our body while we sleep, like in our brain. The cool thing that I read the other day about our brain is that one thing that our brain does while we sleep is it clears waste from the brain, and it removes toxins like beta amyloid, which is linked to Alzheimer's disease. So like sleeping well is actually reducing your risk for Alzheimer's disease, which is just really cool to think about.
Interesting.
Yeah. Lots of things with our hormones, just helping our hormones do the things they're supposed to do, but it also reduces that stress hormone, which is known as cortisol. So it promotes relaxation, balances our appetite hormones, our mental health hormones, all that kind of stuff. Our cells, are going through repair, so it's like a physical recovery thing. It boosts our immune system, promotes heart health and muscle health and metabolic health. So it's just like cool, like how important sleep is. And so it's just kind of like you have to think about before we can even talk about starting the day, we have to really go back to, are we getting a good rest? And it just hit me in this moment that like God started with rest.
Yeah, he did.
And he even, when he created the humans, their first day was Sabbath, right?
The first full day, yeah.
Their first full day was a Sabbath. And so I think it's just cool how he, like our bodies reflect that. Mm-hmm. Our body's needs reflect that. Mm-hmm. Our needs for rest and our needs for nutrition, our limitations reflect that we need to stop. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to pause, and not go and just ignore our body's needs. God actually commands us to stop and rest.
That's why I appreciate the beauty of the Jewish day starting at sundown,
yes,
versus the very arbitrary midnight. I'm sure there was a reason why that got picked as the starting point of a new day. I've never looked into it, but it's like, it feels really arbitrary, where sundown makes sense. It's like, okay, the sun has gone down. All of the daylight is gone. A new day is beginning.
Yeah.
And you begin that new day with
rest. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I like how they do that too. So anyways, if you're not resting well, those processes aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so therefore the rest of what we do in a day, I'm not saying it's void, but definitely
it's less impactful is not quite the right thing.
Yeah,
anyway,
it's
keep
just,
going.
yeah, you're missing something. So so at some point we have to break the fast.
Can I tell you how old I was when I understood what
breakfast
was? Yeah, no, I mean,
break the fast.
It's been within the
Breakfast.
last 7 years. I was reading a fantasy book and they woke up and it's like, hey, you want to break your fast together? And I just sat there for a minute. It was like, I'm sorry. How have I never known that?
That is so funny. I mean, I remember realizing it too. It was a while back.
Yeah, nope. I was late 20s.
Yeah. Well,
anyway.
Yes.
So you break your fast.
You break your fast. So at what point are you supposed to break the fast?
That is the question, Virginia. Please bring me the dietitian opinion.
Well, generally speaking, it should probably be when you get ready to start your day. Because once you leave the house and go to work, you need energy. And that's the best time is probably going to be before your day really begins, as far as like the time where you're getting ready for your day, which is generally what, when breakfast happens, within an hour or two of waking, Now, I know like this can kind of be controversial in the sense that people like tend to believe they're either a breakfast person or they aren't. And there's probably some truth to that, but I think we really can just kind of look at how breakfast has or hasn't been served to you in the past to see if you really, to see how that plays a factor and if you really are a breakfast person or not. And I think about like like me, for example, my mom always served us breakfast. She woke us up. She made a breakfast. Sometimes it was Pop-Tarts. Sometimes it was a honey bun. But most of the time she like put something together. Eggs, toast, French toast sticks. There was something. And that is a practice. That is a monotonous practice that I think is so like sacred and holy, because it's something you do every single morning to start your day. And I just feel like it was such a special thing that my mom did that. I don't know why, but I've always been grateful for that. But she would fix us breakfast, and we would have time to eat it in the chair, because we didn't eat at the table, but we had the chair while WTOK TV was on, the local news station. And we had time to eat our breakfast before we got ready. And that was a very peaceful, it was not rushed. It was not, unless we were just waking up late, which we had, probably did that a time or two, but like for the most part, it was not rushed. It was very slow, and we ate our breakfast and we got ready. But a lot of people's mornings don't look like that. Either the parent isn't providing a meal, and it's fend for yourself, because the parent's not a breakfast person, so then they don't provide for their child. Or maybe your parent just didn't provide for you. And then we have like the rushed mornings. And I've had $1 for every time somebody told me that they didn't have time for breakfast, or they are like literally grabbing something and driving down the road and eating it. Like every day. Yep. Not just because they were running late one morning. I would have $1 million. Yep. But like, there's no time there. Everybody is in a rush. And, so then it's like, yeah, if you're anxious, you're not going to have an appetite for breakfast. So I think about children too. Like if you're rushing your child and they're not having a moment to stop and fuel their body, and they're not eating their breakfast that you're providing them on the go, it's probably because they're stressed. Yep. It's probably because they're not fully awake yet, or because they sense the hurry or the stress that's going on. And so whether that be your child or you, like think about that too. Yeah, no, we had one of those not super long ago with Ezra. One morning we were getting ready for MMO, and I think I had overslept, which meant he obviously overslept because I get him up. And so he didn't just sit down and immediately eat breakfast. Yeah. He wanted to just, be a 2-year-old little boy. Right. And so literally just had to get him ready for the day. And I took his piece of toast with him, and he ate it in the car. Thankfully, I was glad he did. But yeah, he didn't eat because he didn't have the time to wake up and sit down, be a boy, and rest, and then sit down and eat. Yeah. And so in the car, like, you compromise sometimes, but like that was a way for him to like be kind of buckled in and like have his breakfast there. But like you think about, like you say, he didn't have time to be a boy. Like he was being rushed. We think about like 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, like their attention span is very short. Like, they need, like, they can't, we have high expectations of like, sit down, eat your breakfast right away, sit down, eat your meal. Like we have to kind of roam a little bit and then kind of get settled and then sit in, and then, like it takes some time, and we have these high expectations that like the kids are just going to sit down and eat like a robot. 30-minute window, and I need you to eat, get dressed, brush your teeth, and be buckled into your car seat in this 30-minute window. Yeah, and we put a lot of that pressure on our kids, like as if they can do a lot of that by themselves. And they can't. So, lower your expectations. But anyways, it's not really, about that per se. That's part of the conversation. But so think about how like you approach breakfast, how it was served to you growing up, and then how you approach it now. And then we might and then also I want to bring in just diet culture and disordered eating patterns and thinking, because a lot of it is, if I eat breakfast, I'll gain weight. If I don't skip this meal, I'm not disciplined enough. Just depending on whatever kind of thought, it very, like high percentage, it's very likely it's also a disordered thinking thing, why people don't eat breakfast. And depending on what generation you grew up in, it might be whatever was kind of the popular thing of your generation. So I won't get onto all that, but just want you to think about, like, if you say you're not a breakfast person, I really want you to dig into that because...
Why?
Yeah, why? Because there's some medication things and that sort of thing, but for the most part, I think we can push past.
In your experience, is there much beyond maybe medication kind of things? Any other biological reasons you might not be a breakfast person that come to mind? It's okay if the answer is not really.
I can't think of anything, like, just professionally, I can't think of anything that just totally is like, yeah, that's justified.
Okay.
Occasionally you really might just have a person who really has never been a breakfast person, but to me, that's not the whole story when they say that.
It's probably more stress and anxiety.
And if you never eat breakfast, and if you never ate breakfast, your body is not going to have an appetite for it because it's shut off. Your metabolism's going to shut down and go, well, I'm not going to be hungry at the time that I'm not going to get fueled at, because that would be wasting energy. So when we skip meals and we don't eat enough, it slows our metabolism down, it conserves energy, and it shuts down the appetite regulation system that God put in place for us. And so if you don't eat breakfast, then you're not helping out your metabolic health by continuing to skip it.
So what kind of effects can that have?
Okay, so I feel like that jumping.
If I throw you, go.
Okay,
go where you want to go.
So generally speaking, most people are going to feel better with some sort of sustenance in the morning. Okay, to begin their day. So if you think about it, you just went the whole night sleeping without food. And hopefully you're sleeping well. And your liver does a lot of work to keep your blood sugar stable overnight so that you can rest and restore. So now that you're about to start your day, it's just not really wise to start it on empty. And I'll give you the reasons why. So when you fuel your body from the start, you're first metabolically letting your body know that it has what it needs.
Ooh, there's something deep right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go.
Because your metabolism is going to learn, what you're going to do. Okay. So if your body knows it doesn't have to run on empty, then it doesn't have to make changes to adapt. It doesn't have to adapt. Yeah. Those are redundancy there, but it doesn't have to adapt. And so giving your body what it needs from the start lets your body know it's safe, it's secure,
yep,
and it doesn't have to be in this fight or flight, scared, starvation mindset, because it was given something from the start.
Oh, gosh.
Okay?
I'm sorry. Dang. I just need to sit with that for a second. That'll all preach. Okay, keep going.
So yes, it's very reflective of our spiritual health too, right? So this is amazing for your metabolism if you give it fuel from the start. Okay, so for one thing, our body is run by hormones. Hormones are chemical messengers of the body. Our hormones are what tells our body what to do. So here we go. Science lesson. My mom was an anatomy and physiology teacher and chemistry teacher in high school. I had her for 3 years in a row. And I'm telling you, she was the best teacher ever because I still use phrases.
What? She was.
She's retired now, but I still use phrases from her class, and I'm about to give you guys one. So ghrelin is the hunger hormone. Ghrelin is the hormone that goes off to tell the brain that the body is hungry. Ghrelin goes off when the blood sugar starts to drop. So if your stomach is a ghrelin is a going. Isn't that great?
Yep,
Do you remember that?
I mean, I didn't take her for A&P, but I remember.
That's right. You did take A&P.
Yeah.
So, so if your stomach's ghrelin is going. So, just to help you remember that. Leptin is the other hormone. It's one of the hormones, but it's the main hormone that tells us we are full. So this is our natural.
Right. So ghrelin tells me I'm hungry.
That's
a hormone that tells me I'm hungry. Leptin is a hormone that tells me I'm full.
Yes.
Okay.
It kicks in when your body has enough nutrition, and it basically, and it does take about 20 minutes to kick in. when you're eating. That's where the whole 20 minutes.
So if you'll eat quicker, you can feel more. That whole thing is technically true.
So if you eat slower, you'll feel fuller faster.
Right.
But it's not that you're
the opposite with the Thanksgiving thing, or you went to a buffet. You have to eat quickly.
You have to eat quick. Yes.
Okay.
So leptin's one that tells us we're full. So this is our God-given system, our appetite regulation, whereas we're all out here counting our calories and using MyFitnessPal when our body literally tells us what to do. Which of course things play a factor and throw those things off. But one of the things that will throw those hormones off is skipping breakfast. So when we eat breakfast, ghrelin is going to be at lower levels throughout the day, and leptin is going to be at higher levels. This means we are overall more satisfied throughout the day when we eat breakfast. We're less hungry, we're more satisfied. Okay?
Okay, so if I eat breakfast, I'm less likely to go throughout the morning before lunch and then even potentially after lunch with that constant I would like a snack feeling.
Yes. So if we don't eat breakfast, we'll probably be more likely to overeat or eat unhealthy the rest of the day.
And usually the things that are available in those snacky periods are the less desirable things.
Yeah. And breakfast eaters are just typically known to eat more mindfully throughout the day.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay. So there you go. Metabolic. Okay.
Right.
So
talk to me about caffeine and stuff then.
Yeah. So when the body is low on fuel, it's more anxious. Okay. Yep. Right. Why? Like, duh.
Because it needs something. And it's like, am I going to get it? Yeah.
And so when your blood sugar starts to drop, anxiety kicks in because you could die. That's what your body's thinking. And I mean, I had a moment of that today because I was dealing with some low blood sugar today. As a person with type 1 diabetes, I get low blood sugar, but the average person can get lower blood sugars, can get low blood sugar. That's what, that's our nutrition stores, part of our nutrition stores being used up is when our blood sugar gets low. But I had a moment today where, I felt some anxiety that I did not have a snack on me, going through a drive, picking up kids and all this kind of stuff. And, it was an hour ahead, but my body knew it was coming. Mm-hmm. But I knew, I said, oh, if I don't make sure I get home, or get a snack, like my blood sugar is going to drop, and it did. And so it was an hour ahead that my body knew that. Isn't that cool? That is cool. I mean, I'm just very in tune with that. You're very in
tune to that because of your blood sugars.
Yes.
But yeah, that is cool.
So when your body's low on fuel, lower blood sugars, it's going to be more anxious. Okay. Especially if you're stimulating with caffeine. So if you're not eating breakfast and you're drinking coffee or tea, as Tyler does, you're stimulating your body with a stimulant, which is very close to a drug, but we're not going to talk about that. I like my coffee.
I like my tea.
It's an appetite suppressor. So if you actually aren't eating energy, which you can only get from food, energy is calories. You can only get calories. You can only get energy from foods. Calories is a measurement of energy. Okay. So, another phrase from my mother, which is a definition. I
want to make sure if I'm clear. Can you not get calories from a drink? Is that what you're saying? Or when you say food, you mean food and drink?
Food and drink.
Okay. Okay. I was just making sure.
Nutrition.
Okay.
Let me put it that way.
Tracking with it. Just making sure.
Yeah. So caffeine.
Is not a calorie, or it's a calorie.
No.
Not.
It's a stimulant.
Okay.
Coffee doesn't have calories, I don't think, at all. It's the things you add to coffee.
Sure.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, straight black coffee doesn't have.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So here's what I'm saying. So if you're not eating breakfast, you're going to feel anxious, okay? You're going to be in this like low-key state of anxiety, and I'm going to explain hormonally why that's a thing. But secondly, if you're putting yourself, if you're drinking caffeine, then you're making your heart rate increase, which increases your anxiety. It also suppresses your appetite, so you don't think you're hungry. You don't think you need to eat, but you do because you don't have no energy. And this increases your cortisol levels, okay? So this anxiousness is your cortisol levels, your stress hormone increasing. Cortisol is the stress hormone. It's the hormone that we need when we are in danger. You know, and there's other hormones that play a factor in all that, but cortisol is the main one. But we don't need cortisol going off every single morning and every single day. We don't need to be in this low-key state of anxiety or high-key state of anxiety every single day. We are not facing the proverbial saber-toothed tiger, which is a common, I actually heard that on a podcast recently, but that's the commonly used analogy is the saber-toothed tiger. We're not in a fight or flight, a real fight or flight situation.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have other things that are going to raise your cortisol levels, but skipping breakfast and stimulating caffeine is going to increase your cortisol levels.
Does skipping it alone make it go up? Okay.
Because you're putting yourself in a stressful state because you're anxious, because you're hungry, your blood sugar's low.
Gotcha. And then caffeine also triggers it to go up?
Yes.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Just making sure
Yeah.
I'm tracking.
And I'm not going to get into this today, but like this also affects your insulin sensitivity.
Okay.
Which just know that that's affecting you metabolically and increasing a risk for blood sugar issues and also hormones. Okay, that's a cascade that I can't get into right now.
Okay, you've said the phrase metabolically a few times. Give me just a general what you mean. When
yes, I do need to define metabolic health. So your metabolism, just simply put, is the system within your body that takes the food / the energy you eat, or the food that you eat, and turns it into energy. Let me rephrase that. Your metabolism is a system in your body which takes the food that you eat and turns it into energy. Okay? So it's how we get energy from food.
Yep.
I'm literally seeing a note from my textbook like years ago, but that is the definition basically of metabolism. Okay. So your metabolic health, when I say metabolically, that is anything that has to do with that system.
Okay.
That's your heart health. That's your blood pressure. That's your cholesterol, your lipid health. Your lipid is fat, so the cholesterol's run around your blood.
Gotcha.
Your blood sugar health. Okay. So your hormone health. Okay, because our hormones are like insulin is a hormone that regulates blood sugar. So it's a hormonal thing because they all affect each other. So when I say metabolic, what I'm talking about are the systems in your body that are trying to get energy from food.
Gotcha.
Okay. So going back to the cortisol, we need cortisol when we're in a fight or flight situation, right? But we don't need it every day. And so when cortisol is, and kind of you're chronically high stress or chronically having higher levels of cortisol, there's repercussions of that. You know, it raises your blood sugar, it raises your blood pressure, it slows down digestion, it affects your weight. All of these things are good when you are facing danger. Like a saber-toothed tiger. You don't need digestion to be working right now because you need to run. You need that extra blood sugar because you got to run. Your blood pressure needs to be high because you need to be quick thinking. Your heart rate needs to be going. So it is important for that system to work when it's supposed to work. Mm-hmm. But we don't need that every day because now we have raised blood sugars. We have increased blood pressure. We have risks to our metabolic health. Okay. It affects your sleep. It affects your weight. It affects, again, your heart, your blood sugar. So we don't want cortisol to be going off every single morning. And you already have other factors at play that are increasing your cortisol. So if you're skipping breakfast, and especially if you're skipping breakfast and only drinking caffeine, that's what you're doing.
Nice. So skipping breakfast and basically supplementing it for some kind of caffeine, whether that's coffee, energy drinks, whatever's tea, is essentially putting your body
in a fight or flight state chronically.
Yeah, it's essentially a fight or flight state. It's not literally, but it's
the same thing.
I was going to say, like, as far as the insides of all of that part, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
It doesn't know the difference.
Yeah.
So, yes, it is literally a fight or flight state. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
It's the same thing. Like if we're talking about your child having a meltdown, they're in a fight or flight state. Like when they're having an absolute meltdown, there's no logic. You can't talk to your child. You can't teach your child in that moment. You have to help them calm down. You have to get them back into a calm state. They also have to do something with that cortisol, that energy that just got pushed out in their body for having this meltdown over the, milk not being able to be frothed. And so, like you have to, not that actually literally happened, but like you have to calm the system down. So, it's the same system. Like we're talking about fight or flight across the board. Your food and the way that you eat affects that. Okay, so yeah, we don't want that going off all the time. And I will take a moment right now to mention intermittent fasting. Mm-hmm. I didn't actually make notes on talking about this, but there are two sides to research. Research says intermittent fasting is good for the health, and then intermittent fasting is bad for the health. And I'm going to lean towards it's probably promoting disordered eating, and it's probably promoting high cortisol, and it's wrecking women's hormones because of all the things that we've talked about. And I'm about to talk about on that just a little bit more. But when I look at trusted people who are talking about intermittent fasting, a lot of them are starting to say to intermittent fast by eating lighter at the end of the day versus the beginning of the day, because not eating at the beginning of your day causes all these issues I've been talking about. And so they're flipping the script. Instead of skipping breakfast and not eating till afternoon, the experts are starting to say, like, no, eat breakfast and stop eating at a certain time at the end of the day. To gain the benefits that supposedly research has shown intermittent fasting can do metabolically. I'm not going to get in that, but if you are a person who thinks that intermittent fasting is working for you, or you think that's something you want to try, then I would at least suggest doing it at the end of the day versus. And think about this too. I always tell my clients, I tell people to think about this, is that you're already intermittent fasting when you stop eating supper. Whatever last meal or snack you have of the day until you eat breakfast, that's an intermittent fast. Yeah. Now, sometimes we eat late at night, so probably not so good for your sleep health if you're eating right before you go to bed, and depending on what you're eating, that sort of thing. Depending on what you're doing, that sort of, But, like, just know that, like, we already naturally intermittent fast, so you really don't have to try that hard. Like, it shouldn't be something that's massively different than what you're already doing if you're, stopping after, your last meal, or, if you do have a snack before you go to sleep till when you eat breakfast the next day. So if we just kind of worked with our natural system, because we also fast in between meals, right? Or again, like I do promote snacks when they're needed. So between the times that you eat, you're fasting. So all the benefits we get from fasting naturally happen overnight, as long as we stop eating before we go to sleep and then break our fast in the morning. And then the fast that we have in between our meals, that's where we get the benefits of fasting if we're doing that. Now, some people graze, and some people eat up until right before they go to bed, and so some people do miss that, but like if you're like hardcore intermittent fasting, like naturally intermittent fasting is probably happening if you're on a consistent eating schedule that's in a, kind of a healthy pattern. So anyways, I didn't mean to get off on that.
No,
but
you're good. I haven't said much because as you're talking and I'm intaking that, I'm just formulating that we should at some point have a conversation along the lines of things that overlap and things that don't, in the difference between a fasting for the sake of health, trying to lose weight, trying to bring down numbers on the doctor's chart or whatever, because you're supposed to fast before you go in to get all your blood work done and all those things. The similarities and differences between doing a health fast and a spiritual fast.
Yeah.
That's what I'll call them for this moment. Yeah, just kind of
that'd be a fun conversation.
Noting that for future. Oh, sorry. Keep going.
Yeah. So anyways, women should especially be wary of skipping breakfast because of that increased stress hormone and because of the way it affects our insulin sensitivity. We're naturally most, like, the general person is more insulin resistant in the morning, and so that means that it just takes more to manage metabolism and blood sugar, glucose metabolism. And so when we're increasing our cortisol, we're making our resistance worse. And there's actually kind of a cascade of things that can happen that affect, speaking of blood sugar, the things that can happen from that will start to wreak havoc on women's hormones. So just bottom line, because this is not a hormone podcast, I'm about to start talking about that. But your estrogen, your progesterone, all of those things are being impacted by you not eating breakfast. And the problem is women are really impacted by the diet culture of skipping breakfast for whatever reason, like just taking pride in skipping meals, period.
Yep.
But especially if you do have hormone issues and you have insulin resistance and weight retention, then you might be more prone to skip breakfast because you think that's the answer to your problems when actually it's probably making it worse.
Yeah. The most obvious is, okay, if I'm having weight issues and blood sugar issues and all the things, is, well, just don't eat food and then you can't have those problems. But it's actually opposite is true. There's
a deeper...
Man, it's like God designed the world, the physical world, to reflect the fact that his wisdom is often upside down. There's something there too.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of things like
and
that.
Skipping
anyway,
breakfast, it tends to backfire. And, I've talked about that multiple ways. But, one of the last things I like to touch on when it comes to eating breakfast, the thing is, as humans, we need a lot of energy in a day. Energy, remember, is calories.
Yes.
And we need a lot of nutrition specifically. So when I say nutrition, I'm expanding that outside of calories to all of our vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and phytochemicals and all those things that our body needs to work and do the things it needs to do and stay healthy and ward off illness, our immune system and all that sort of thing, fight disease. We need a good bit of nutrition in a day. And that's why, you look on a nutrition facts label and it's like the daily value is
2,000 or something.
It's like the general 2,000 calorie diet. That's because 2,000 is like an average of what people are needing. When women are out here eating 1,200 calories,
2,000 is the average.
Yeah.
And that's just for baseline.
Yeah.
Right there in the middle. Yours may be higher that you are actually needing today.
And generally it is higher, especially for those who are exercising.
Yes.
So, you're not going to get all the nutrition you need if you're skipping a meal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you just can't do it.
Yeah.
And if you skip a meal, but then you get all your calories at the end of the day because you're overeating or even binging, then we all know that habit's detrimental to your physical and mental health. So we don't want to promote that. You
deprived your body for a significant portion of the day, so your metabolism slowed itself down because it said, okay, I don't really have enough, so I've got to slow down what I'm doing to conserve what we have to run this body today. And then you just dump a ton on top of it, and now it's literally a shock to the system going, oh snap, double down on what we've been doing today, guys, and it's got to work twice as hard in a shorter amount of time, which is just as damaging, I would assume, as depriving it on the front end. You've now overloaded it on the back end, and you've damaged it on both sides of the day.
Yeah.
Would that be?
You're stressing it out. Yeah.
Damage is the wrong
be
word.
A strong word,
stress
but
it.
you're definitely not doing yourself any favors. And the thing is, like, and I hear it men and women, okay? So if you're prone to being obsessed with food, like later in the day, or if you're really overeating later in the day, or you're binging at the end of the day, if you're doing these things and you're skipping breakfast, that's going to be the first thing I tell you, like, to change or suggest to change, is to add a substantial breakfast to combat that. However, there's a lot of emotional work that has to then be done.
Okay.
Because end of day overeating is a nutritional problem.
Yes.
Because more than likely it's that you haven't got enough nutrition at the top of your day.
Okay.
Okay. So think about it. Like you kind of just said, you don't eat enough at the top of your day. Maybe you do get your lunch because that's kind of a common thing. It's a break in your day while you're at work. You come home, you have a supper. You probably are a little hungry around 4 o'clock or so, and or you need to pick me up, so you get something, and then you have supper, and then you're feeling a little munchy after supper. You have your little snack before you go to bed. That's just like a general. There could be lots of variations there. You get, a second meal, a second supper, that sort of thing. Like you can't stop thinking about food. You're just like munchy. You're wanting to eat a lot. Or you feel like something's wrong with you because you can't stop thinking about food, or you're obsessed with eating. No, again, there may be somebody listening that doesn't relate to that, and doesn't eat breakfast or whatever. But at the end of the day is also our kind of our most vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we come to the end of ourselves at the end of the day. We might feel more relaxed at the end of the day, or we might be more stressed, because sometimes we eat out of stress, or we restrict out of stress. But you might be coming home and dealing with your emotional health through eating one way or the other. And so let me just kind of sum up what I'm trying to say here. If we get breakfast in place, and it's a substantial breakfast, and so you've kind of gotten your pattern of eating, but you still feel a little obsessed with food, and at the end of the day, you still feel like you're getting the munchies or that sort of thing. You're going to the food after you've already had a meal, or maybe there's a specific food that you're craving, even though you have like a variety of healthy foods to choose from. This is where I say that emotional bucket is needing to be filled with things that aren't food. So we have to cope with our emotions without using food. And we have to figure out what's going on. Is it because we finally feel safe in our home? At the end of the day is done. And we finally feel safe, and so we kind of like go to the comfort of eating? Or is it because we have something we're stressed about, or we need to deal with, and we're using food to deal with it? Mm-hmm. Or has it become just such a habitual thing that we feel lost without it if we don't have it? Even though now we're getting enough at the beginning of the day, we feel like drawn and kind of bound to this habit that we have formed. Mm-hmm. Whether it be, a whole second supper or a large dessert every single evening. Again, not inherently, those things aren't inherently bad, but it's when they do they have a power over us. That's when it becomes a problem. So I bring this up because that disordered eating of skipping meals, and then, maybe eating it all at the end of the day, or even if you don't overeat, there could be this like still draw towards eating more, or feeling like you're out of control around food. It kind of happens too, like with weekdays and weekends as well. People on the weekend feel more out of control around food because of their schedule. It's off and that sort of thing. But anyways, I didn't mean to get off on that, just to say, like, we need a lot of energy. We need a lot of nutrition in the day. And the only way you're going to get enough of it is if you start your day, is you don't skip meals. Is if you get your meals in and you make sure that you're getting enough at those meals. and have a snack in between if it's needed, if it's warranted.
Yeah. So, practical ways to start to identify emotional triggers and what to do with them when I find them.
I think most people know. You just have to admit it to yourself.
Okay.
So, but I will say, like I kind of just said a second ago, if something feels like it has power over you, that's a foothold. That's a stronghold. Okay. So that means it's got a power over you that you don't feel in charge of. So you are, you're controlled by it.
Yeah.
Okay. You're controlled by this desire. You're controlled by this food. You're controlled by this habit. Okay. Another emotional trigger or a way that you can kind of figure it out is by asking yourself some questions. Like, I just had a whole meal. Why am I still feeling the need to eat? Or if it's just not like a normal eating time and you're not physically feeling that hunger, like, am I biologically hungry right now? You know, I'm not talking about like, oh, you want a cookie, like eat a cookie, have a dessert, whatever. I'm talking about that constant thing that keeps coming up. And you're like, I'm eating, but it's not food that I need. What is it I do need? And so you have to ask yourself some questions. And I have, I'm gonna have to share this. I have an emotional eating questionnaire that I used. I borrowed from someone, but or adapted. And so just asking yourself questions like, what do I need? And how can I help myself out? How can I meet that need?
Personally, bored eating is one for me that I have, especially if nobody else is around. Like, I'll snack myself to death.
So, okay. So let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
Absolutely.
So, when you're here alone.
Yep.
You get bored. What do you feel like it is that you don't want to sit with?
Ooh, what I don't want to sit with. I don't know that I'm super idle well.
Yeah.
I don't sit still well. I can sit in one place and focus on one thing. I don't feel there's no ADD for me kind of thing. I mean, I can sit still and stare at a book for 4 hours. But at any point, my attention is off, and then I don't have someone to interact with.
Or something to do.
Yeah, I then turn and go, I wonder if there's any Oreos in the cabinet.
Is it related to your productivity?
Probably. My ability to, to ship. Get something done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a deep-seated need in me. Yes.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's just hard to we tell our kids all the time, it's okay to be bored.
Yeah.
It's okay to be bored. Sit and be bored, and then you'll be creative. You'll think of something fun to do. But how well do we handle being bored?
Yep.
We flip that phone out real quick, or we go to the pantry, or we turn on the TV or whatever, and not being, it's whatever. But like, just use that as an example. If it's a thing for you, you kind of go, okay, like, why do I really do this?
Yeah. And so it is one that I noted years ago, but it doesn't mean that I don't still do it if I'm not thinking of it. Yeah. Yeah. I'll still do that from time to time when you and the kids are gone for a while.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you gave a lot of science, and I love the science.
I'm going to sum it up.
Yeah. Give me a quick summary, and then let's talk some practicals.
Okay. So to sum it up, yes, breakfast is important. So are all the other meals. But breakfast kickstarts your day, and that's going to affect the rest of your day. So here's the main points from today's message. 1, when you eat breakfast, you kickstart your energy and your metabolism so that your body's not running on empty. Okay. 2, metabolically, it makes a difference so that you are able to make healthier choices throughout the day. So metabolically and mentally, it makes a difference. And then number 3, your hormone and metabolic health benefit from breakfast. And just think about it this way, it's from nutrition, because we literally need nutrition make all these systems work. Okay. Number 4, when you eat breakfast, you're setting yourself up to get adequate nutrition for the day, which helps your body get what it needs, and it wards off disordered eating later in the day.
It's good.
Okay. So how do we go about breakfast in a healthy way?
Yep.
And healthy, it's a nuanced term, right? But the cereal companies that coined the phrase breakfast is the most important meal of the day, they coined that phrase because they want your money.
Yes.
So I would not suggest relying on cereal to be your adequate breakfast on a daily basis. Our cereals today, like we said earlier, are a joke to other countries because they're literally sold in candy shops. So, I mean, there are different cereals that have like nuts and stuff in them that kind of increase their protein content, but
you know the ones we're talking about.
Yeah, you guys know.
You're not confused.
Okay. So, and speaking from someone who can see what cereal does to blood sugar on a literal 5-minute basis, every 5-minute basis, it really does kind of wreak havoc on our blood sugars, especially in the morning because we're all naturally more insulin resistant in the morning, meaning our blood sugars are going to be higher. It's going to be harder to bring that blood sugar down. So even people without diabetes or blood sugar issues, like this is a thing. It's just on a different kind of scale. Now you can include cereal in a nutritious way, in a filling way. I even gave an example of how we use it with like a high protein, Greek yogurt. But if you're willing to make that change, if you're willing to fit your cereal in a balanced breakfast, and you're willing to,
which comically, the cereal companies have been telling us this for years. All of their advertisement refers to it as part of a balanced breakfast.
Absolutely.
So they are fully aware. They apparently got in some liability trouble somewhere along the way.
Well, no, they wouldn't be liable for any of that.
And liability, not quite the word, but they got into something that made them start adding that. They didn't do that of their goodwill. Yeah. So whether it's cereal, Pop-Tarts, whatever, if you're willing to make a change where you're adding foods that make it more balanced, then you're willing to try my method of building a nutritious meal anyways. So here's just generally what I'll go with. Aim for 3 to 5 food groups at every meal. And the 5 food groups are protein, grains, fruits, vegetables, dairy. Okay? Protein, grain, fruit, vegetable, dairy. Yeah,
and as I taught the second graders, proteins, grains, fruits, vegetables, dairy. A little. Yeah.
Give it a rhythm.
Jingle. So those are the 5 food groups, and I will say we need to make sure that fat is a part of it somehow, some way, because we don't need to be eating wholly fat-free. Okay? We won't ever be satisfied with our meals. So fat is important for satiation. It helps us keep full. Yeah. So I'm not counting it as necessarily a food group because you'll typically have fat either added in with the way that you cook or it's like in the food already. As long as you're not choosing a fat-free option, which is such a bogus thing. All the fat-free stuff is all because of bad research back in the 90s, late 80s and 90s. But anyways, protein, let's aim for protein to kind of be a must-have because that's protein and fat anchor down your carbohydrates. So we want to combine them all together, okay? And the 5 food groups, protein is protein and typically has fat accompanying it depending on what kind of protein you're choosing. Meat, fish, poultry, eggs, bacon, sausage, peanut butter, nuts and seeds, okay? Dairy has... it can sometimes be used as your protein. Okay, then all of the other 4 food groups have carbohydrates in them. Okay? So you're going to have to balance out those carbohydrates with that protein and fat.
Gotcha.
All right, protein is an anchor. Thank you, Rebecca Turner, for using that actual phrase. It's sustainable energy. So it holds down those carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are fast energy. We use those up quickly. So we want to combine these things together. So I say aim for 3 to 5 food groups. Protein, make it a must-have. Have that protein on there. Yeah. If it's too carb heavy, if it's too carbohydrate heavy, then you'll probably have a crash later. You'll get a rush and then you'll have a crash. If it's fat-free, you're not going to feel full. So I typically say avoid the fat-free yogurts and fat-free milk. Avoid those. If it's only protein, you're probably going to use that up pretty quickly too. Even though protein is more sustainable, if it's all you have, it's going to be turned into glucose. So you don't want it to be the only thing you eat.
Gotcha.
You want to combine it. We've got to have that balance. So I do actually have 2 very helpful sheets on our free resources page that talk about breakfast. One is a little bit geared more towards feeding your child, and it talks about how giving your child a breakfast is very beneficial for them mentally and physically. I didn't even talk about children and breakfasts today, and the children in schools on an empty stomach. Like, that just makes me sad to think about kids going to school without a breakfast. Yeah. Or very little
behavioral issues. Got it. Heard
yes.
You didn't say it, but let's say it.
Yep. But also another worksheet that just helps you if breakfast is that hard for you, like just an easy way to get those food groups in. So I'll like pull it up real quick just so we can kind of look at it. But when you think about the food groups, you just want to get your main ones that you like and then put them in a rotation. We like cinnamon toast. So that's our grain. We eat cinnamon toast a lot. We really like scrambled eggs. That's our main protein. We like sausage, which is a protein and a fat. So, and eggs are too. So we get protein, fat with our grain, and it's sweet. So it's got that little bit of sugar in it. Cinnamon, which is, we think about spices. Spices are really beneficial to the body. I'm not even going to get into that today, but, that cinnamon is also really good.
Is all the spices I'm drinking in my tea really beneficial to my body?
Absolutely.
Hey, I didn't know that? Know I was benefiting my body.
Yeah, no, like spiced and herbal teas are like really...
I mean, I knew herbal teas were.
Yeah.
I didn't know spices were.
And so since people don't typically eat vegetables for breakfast unless you're doing like a veggie omelet, there's like a list of fruits. Obviously, fruits are easy. You just pick which ones you like or which are in season. We like peanut butter around here. We like oatmeal. We like to do muffins and that sort of thing every now and then. And every time we do muffins, I'm like, if we do just muffins, like on a Saturday morning, I typically am like, first of all, having a blood sugar heyday, and then trying to figure out how I can get some protein in there because I want to keep my blood sugar from having a heyday. And so again, for the person that doesn't have diabetes, like your blood sugar is still going to go a little wacko.
Yeah. We use peanut butter on a billion things. If you haven't put peanut butter on muffins or toast
or banana bread
or in your oatmeal or I mean, pretty
that's
much anywhere you could think.
That's our anchor.
Like, we've probably used peanut butter there before. Yeah. And you know what? It's almost always delicious.
And I know like time is a factor. And so like that's a conversation. Like that's just a habit that you've got to figure out because if you don't have time for breakfast, then you don't have time for taking care of yourself. Yeah.
It's a question of
essentially what that means.
Are you waking up early enough? And if that's the struggle, then the other question is, are you going to bed early enough?
Yeah. And like, hey, I'm one who has struggles with waking up early.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you've got to sort out your priorities. Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Hermione.
Took a moment. Had to think of it. Yep.
And so, anyways, easy breakfast, a breakfast guide on our free resources page. And so I'll point you to that because, that should simplify it for you, but just know that like just taking that and putting it on your fridge is not necessarily going to make it happen.
Yep, you got to make the choice.
So buy Tyler's Forming Your Life habit tracker book and figure out how you can mark breakfast off 7 days a week after forming that habit, if you will.
It's good. Any final thoughts from you?
This is the first, other than the shame-free eating.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be the first of a lot of fun conversations we have here on Boles of Life. And so I just want to say, blanket statement, I will have these conversations in person. If you ask me a question, just take a seat because we're about to talk. So I love to talk about it. Don't feel like you can't ask me a question or if it's going to be a bother. Now, if it turns into like a session,
nutrition.
then I will give you my card and we will book a session. But if you really do want to book a session with me, you can actually do that. Go to sadiewell.com or just contact me through the Boles of Life and we will get you a session. But anyways, the bottom line is that feed your body, take care of your body, and know that you have limitations. And in order to, be well, do well, you've got to stop and take care of yourself. And breakfast is one of those ways to do that. It's the start of your day.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us on this episode of the Boles of Life podcast. Since this episode is airing towards the beginning of December, as best I remember in my brain, I'll point you guys back to our website yet again, bolesoflife.com. There is a gift list on there where we curated, I think it's 10 different gifts that are things in our household that we use and we love and we would recommend to anybody. So instead of going and diving the gift list of 150,000 things, go hop on this one, give it a quick glance and see if there's anything that works for you or those people you're buying for in your life. Thanks for joining us in our messy adventures of faith, family, and on this episode,
food.
Lots of food. See you guys soon.